In 1896, 19 prospectors set off into the vast, unforgiving Superstition Mountains, each one hungry for fortune, driven by the promise of a legendary gold mine. The journey was long and treacherous, stretching over rocky terrain, through valleys of scorching heat and bone-dry dust. They carried their hopes in tattered bags and on their weary backs, desperate for the wealth they believed the mountains could offer. But the harsh desert was not forgiving. Only 5 would return alive. The rest, lost to time and the dangers of the unforgiving landscape, left behind nothing but stories and rumors, scattered like dust in the wind. What happened to the others? As the story begins, the camera sweeps over the barren desert, capturing the endless stretch of cracked earth and jagged mountain peaks in the distance. The sunlight beats down relentlessly, distorting the heat waves that rise from the ground, making the environment appear distorted, as though the mountains themselves are mirages. The desert is vast, empty, and merciless, a place where survival is an afterthought. It's a setting of isolation, one that whispers the harsh truth. Here, only the strongest survive. There is no place for weakness in the Superstition Mountains, and the terrain reflects that reality. The first, Garimpiro, his face aged and weathered from years of struggle, squints into the distance, his eyes narrowing as he surveys the harsh landscape ahead. His hand grips the weathered map, the edges torn and faded. His heart pounds in his chest, unsure of the way forward, but driven by an unseen force. The silence around him is deafening, punctuated only by the sound of the wind, which seems to carry with it an unspoken warning. The air is thick, oppressive, as if the desert itself is holding its breath, waiting for something terrible to happen. The sense of dread grows in the air, and with it, the tension mounts. The wind picks up, becoming a low, ominous whisper, its voice shifting and curling between the rocks. It seems to carry an ancient secret, a curse buried beneath the sands for centuries. As it moves through the mountains, it stirs the dust, swirling in unpredictable patterns, as though the desert itself is alive, watching the men who dare to tread upon it. Each step they take feels as though they are walking deeper into a trap, a place where the earth has swallowed many before them. And as the sun lowers, the shadows grow long, stretching out like fingers, reaching for the men in warning. The group presses on, moving with an urgency that belies the growing fear in their hearts. The path is winding and narrow, the rocks sharp and unforgiving beneath their boots. Their bodies are exhausted, their water supplies dwindling, and still they press on, driven by the promise of gold. Yet, with every step, the tension only builds. They can feel it, an unseen presence that stirs in the silence, lurking just beyond the edge of their vision. They hear strange sounds on the wind, indistinct whispers that seem to follow them, growing louder and more insistent the further they go. But no one speaks of it aloud. There is only the feeling, a gut-deep instinct that tells them they are not alone. As the day stretches on, the group is drawn to a jagged peak in the distance, one that stands out from the rest. It's as if it beckons them forward, a promise of something hidden in its shadow. The prospectors quicken their pace, eager to reach their destination, unaware that the mountain is a place of danger, a place where the very air seems to conspire against them. The mountain hides its secrets well, and the closer they get, the more oppressive the air becomes. The wind grows colder, the whispers turning into unintelligible voices, as though the earth itself is speaking to them, warning them to turn back. But there is no turning back. The prospectors are far too deep now, caught in the grip of their own desires and the lure of untold riches. The map, that crumpled piece of parchment they have been following, seems to pulse in their hands, guiding them forward with an almost supernatural force. But what they don't realize is that this map is a double-edged sword, leading them not to fortune, but to something far more terrifying. A trap set by the mountains long ago, one that has claimed many before them. The prospectors can feel it now. Something is watching them, and the danger they feel is real. The camera lingers on the rugged terrain, the harsh shadows creeping across the desert floor. The wind howls louder, carrying with it a sense of finality. There is no more doubt. The desert has begun to close in on them. Each step feels heavier than the last, each breath more labored. The world around them grows darker, the sky turning a deep shade of red as the sun begins to set. As the shadows lengthen, the men move forward into the growing darkness, unaware of the true horror that lies in wait. They've come too far to turn back, but the mountains have already begun to claim them, one by one. And in the distance, just beyond the jagged cliffs, the lost map calls to them, a dark promise that they will never be able to escape. Under the vast, open sky, the camp is eerily quiet, save for the crackling of the fire and the occasional rustle of the wind through the dry, barren land. The stars above twinkle coldly, their light dimmed by the overpowering presence of the full moon. Its pale, ghostly glow bathes the landscape in an unnatural light, casting long shadows that seem to stretch like fingers, reaching out to touch the men gathered around the fire. The night is still, yet something lingers in the air, an unease that no one dares to acknowledge. The map, a fragile relic, sits between them, its weight far heavier than its paper-thin form suggests. It holds their futures, their dreams of riches, but at what cost? The map itself is a mystery, its origins unknown, and the path it outlines almost impossible to decipher. The prospectors found it in the ruins of an abandoned settlement, buried beneath layers of dust and forgotten memories. Its corners are frayed, the ink faded and smudged, but the marks are still legible enough to suggest a location hidden deep within the Superstition Mountains. The promise of untold riches shines from its surface, igniting a fire in their hearts. But what they fail to realize is that many before them have sought this treasure, and each one has disappeared, swallowed by the land or driven mad by the elusive gold that no one has ever found. As they sit around the campfire, the firelight dances on their faces, illuminating the hope and desperation in their eyes. The tension between them is palpable. Everyone wants a piece of the fortune promised by the map, but there is something else lingering beneath the surface. Fear that they may be chasing an illusion, a dream that will never materialize. Some of them, though they would never admit it aloud, are beginning to question whether the map is cursed. The idea feels absurd, but the thought gnaws at them. They can't ignore the eerie stillness of the desert night, the whispers of the wind, or the strange feeling that the mountains themselves are watching them, as though waiting for them to make a fatal mistake. A sudden scream slices through the stillness of the night, a sound so raw and filled with terror that it sends a jolt of fear through every man sitting by the fire. The scream is distant, echoing off the mountains, but it is unmistakable, a cry for help or perhaps a warning. The men freeze, their eyes wide, scanning the dark expanse, but there is nothing, only the moonlight and the shadows that twist and bend like living things. No one speaks for a long moment, but the air is thick with the unsaid. Something is out there, something they cannot see, but they can feel it. The trust among the group begins to fracture, the seeds of doubt now planted deep within their hearts. As the men sit in uneasy silence, the fire sputters, casting brief, flickering shadows across their faces. Each man is lost in his thoughts, haunted by the scream that still echoes in their minds, but none of them dare speak about it. The fear is too great, and the need to appear strong, to mask the growing terror within, overrides the desire to voice their concerns. But even in their silence, the tension is undeniable. It lingers in the air like a storm waiting to break. The full moon seems to grow larger, its light more oppressive, as though it too is watching them, waiting for their next move. And in the distance, the sound of the wind begins to carry with it strange, unsettling whispers. The map sits untouched on the ground, its crumpled edges now a symbol of all their frustrations and fears. The full moon casts an unnatural glow on it, making it seem almost alive, as though it pulses with a dark, magnetic energy. It calls to them, just as it has called to every fortune hunter before. But there is something different this time. Something feels wrong. The map is more than just a piece of paper. It is a curse, and those who seek it are doomed to repeat the mistakes of those who came before them. The men can feel it in their bones now. They are not the first to follow this map, and they certainly won't be the last. But will they be the ones to finally find the treasure? Or will they too be swallowed by the mountain's endless hunger? One by one, the men begin to glance at each other, their suspicions rising like the heat of the desert sun. There is no longer a sense of camaraderie. Instead, there is an undercurrent of distrust. The shared goal of gold now feels like a curse, and the map, which once seemed like the key to their futures, now feels like a trap. What if one of them is hiding something? What if someone has other plans? Their paranoia is growing as each man wonders if his companions might turn on him to secure the fortune for themselves. The sound of the wind picks up again, its mournful howl echoing through the canyon like a warning. The desert itself seems to be conspiring against them, and the men begin to feel as though they are being pulled into something far darker than they ever imagined. The night stretches on, the men unable to sleep, their eyes darting nervously from shadow to shadow. Every creak of a branch, every rustle of the wind feels like a threat. The map, now placed in the center of their camp, is a constant reminder of the danger they have willingly chosen to face. It is a guide, yes, but also a beacon to something far more sinister. They are not alone here. Something watches them from the darkness. The wind carries a voice, a low, almost imperceptible whisper that sounds like a warning. The men try to shake off the unease, but it clings to them like a second skin. The shadows grow longer, the desert colder, and the feeling of doom closes in, tighter and tighter. As the days stretch on, the group grows more desperate. They gather around the map, their eyes scanning its faded edges, trying to decipher the cryptic symbols that seem to mock them. The terrain is becoming more treacherous with each step they take. The once familiar desert landscape now feels different, drier, harsher, as though the earth itself is shifting beneath their feet. The air grows thick with tension, and the winds seem to whisper warnings, though no one dares to listen. The sky above, once a bright blue, has turned a pale, sickly hue, and the mountains that once seemed distant now loom closer, more menacing. The promise of fortune grows dimmer, replaced by an overwhelming sense of dread that none can escape. The sun is relentless, its heat bearing down on the men, making the dry earth beneath their feet crack and crumble with every step. The landscape, once open and vast, has become a distorted labyrinth of jagged rocks and treacherous terrain. The air feels unnaturally heavy, and the landscape seems to close in around them, narrowing their paths. The once infinite horizon now feels claustrophobic, as if the mountains themselves are closing in, hemming them in with invisible walls. Their feet sink into the dry earth with each step, and the sun seems to scorch their skin with an intensity that's almost unbearable. Something about the desert has changed, and they can feel it in their bones. The land is not as it should be. On the third day, as the group sets camp once more, one of the men, a quiet prospector named Thomas, is missing. His bedroll is still unrolled, his pack untouched, but he is nowhere to be found. Panic quickly sets in. No one saw him leave, and there are no signs of struggle. His disappearance is as sudden as it is inexplicable. The men call his name, search the area, but there is no trace of him. No footprints, no signs of movement. The group begins to argue, their voices rising in a mixture of frustration and fear. Some believe he wandered off on his own, others suggest something far darker. But one thing is clear: Thomas is gone, and something is very wrong in the desert. As night falls, the group sits around the campfire, too afraid to sleep, too afraid to speak. The desert has taken Thomas, and they are all left with the haunting realization that it could take any of them next. The air is thick with fear, and the once comforting warmth of the fire now feels oppressive. Strange sounds echo in the night, whispers that ride on the wind, just out of reach of comprehension. The men strain their ears, trying to make sense of the noises, but it's no use. The sounds are too distant, too unclear. At times, they almost sound like footsteps dragging slowly across the desert floor, but when they turn to look, there's nothing there, only the dark, yawning abyss of the desert night. As the hours pass, the strange noises grow louder, more distinct, but still they can't place the source. The winds stir the sand around their camp, creating shifting patterns, almost as if the earth is moving on its own. Shadows seem to stretch and twist unnaturally in the moonlight, creeping along the edges of the camp as if something or someone was watching. When the men decide to venture out to search for Thomas, they find something that chills them to the core. Footprints in the sand, but they are not the footprints of a man. These tracks are too large, too deep, as though something far heavier than a human has passed through. And they don't lead in any clear direction. They seem to appear out of nowhere, then vanish into the desert as if swallowed by the earth itself. The trust among the group begins to erode quickly. What began as a shared goal of gold and glory is now tainted by fear. Suspicion rises with each passing hour, and the men look at each other as though waiting for one of them to crack. Who can they trust? Who is hiding something? As the night deepens, the desert seems to close in on them even more, the air becoming suffocating. Every shadow, every movement in the corner of their vision is now a threat. The wind howls louder, now carrying with it the distinct sound of something scraping against the rocks. The men jump at the slightest sound, their nerves on edge, but there is no escape from the relentless tension building in their hearts. The next morning, they try to continue their journey, but the mood among them has shifted. It is no longer about the gold, no longer about the treasure hidden in the mountains. Now, they are running from something they cannot see, cannot understand. Each man's face is drawn, their eyes sunken from sleepless nights and haunted by the constant feeling that something is watching them. They don't speak of Thomas, but his absence hangs over them like a dark cloud. The land is more hostile now, the desert a twisted reflection of what it once was. The terrain is rougher, the air thicker, and the mountains that once seemed like a destination now feel like an impenetrable fortress, their jagged peaks mocking their futile attempts to survive. By midday, the temperature reaches a blistering heat, but even that doesn't offer relief. There is no wind, no sound, only the unbearable silence of the desert pressing down on them. They feel it, the invisible presence stalking them from the shadows. The trust that once bound them has now dissolved into suspicion and fear. They are no longer a group of fortune hunters. They are survivors, each man only looking out for himself. The map, the reason they came here, no longer seems to matter. The only thing that does is escaping the desert, but the land won't let them go. The invisible evil they feel watching them grows stronger with every step they take, until they begin to wonder if they'll ever escape, or if the desert itself has claimed them. The desert, once a vast expanse of golden sand, now feels like a claustrophobic prison. The relentless heat and blinding sunlight have given way to a more oppressive force, a sudden sandstorm. It strikes without warning, the wind howling with an unnatural fury. The men struggle to cover their faces, but the grit of the sand cuts through their clothes, stinging their skin. Visibility is reduced to mere inches, and the air itself feels alive, pressing down on them with an almost suffocating weight. In the midst of the storm, confusion reigns. Their sense of direction evaporates, and the path they once followed becomes a distant memory. The storm is not just a physical assault on their bodies, it is an assault on their sanity. The sand seems to swirl around them, carrying whispers that rattle their minds, distorting their thoughts. As the sandstorm subsides, the group is left disoriented, their faces roar from the abrasiveness of the wind. They are no longer a cohesive group of determined men. They are fractured, each one haunted by the fear of what might be lurking just beyond the edge of their vision. One of the men, a once strong prospecting veteran named William, vanishes without a trace. He simply disappears, leaving behind no footprints, no evidence of a struggle. Panic sets in. The men search for him frantically, but the desert offers no answers, only silence. The storm has stolen their bearings, and now it has stolen one of their own. The growing realization that they are being picked off one by one sends a ripple of paranoia through the remaining men. They begin to distrust each other, questioning every movement, every glance. The unity that once defined them is shattered. The terrain grows increasingly alien. What was once a desert of endless dunes is now a twisted labyrinth of jagged rocks and shifting shadows. The mountains loom closer, their jagged peaks almost mocking the men who have ventured too far. The desert has transformed into something darker, more dangerous. Every rock formation seems to harbor something sinister, as though the landscape itself is conspiring against them. The men, now barely able to recognize one another, stumble through the maze, their faces gaunt and their eyes wild with fear. They hear the wind howling, but it's not the wind. They hear voices, faint whispers carried on the breeze. They cannot understand the words, but they feel the weight of the messages, each one a personal affront to their very being. The desert is speaking, and it is speaking in a language of terror. As the days blend into one another, the men's perceptions begin to unravel. They are no longer sure if they are awake or dreaming, if the world around them is real or an illusion crafted by their minds. Shadows move in the corner of their eyes, and ghostly figures seem to appear in the distance, always just beyond their reach. At first, they think it's fatigue, a trick of the mind, but the figures never fade. They are there, tall, thin shapes that watch them from afar, their features obscured by the dust and wind. Every time they turn to face them directly, the figures vanish, leaving only the remnants of a whispered name, a haunting call that lingers in the air like the scent of death itself. The line between reality and madness has blurred, and there is no escape. The group is now fractured beyond repair. The last traces of camaraderie are gone, replaced by an all-consuming fear that has taken hold of every man. They see things that aren't there, faces in the rocks, eyes that follow them, shapes that shift in the sand. Each of them hears voices now, whispering their worst fears, accusing them of things they haven't done. The desert has become a mirror, reflecting their deepest anxieties, twisting them into nightmares. The map, once their guide, now seems irrelevant, a relic of a past they cannot return to. What they sought in these mountains no longer matters. Survival has become their sole focus, but even that seems impossible as the desert tightens its grip and the unseen evil draws closer. As the group stumbles through the jagged landscape, they come across an old, abandoned camp, long forgotten by time. The remnants of the camp are scattered across the ground. Rusted tools, half-buried fire pits, torn tents, and broken equipment. The sight sends a chill through the group, an unsettling realization dawning upon them. They are not the first to tread this cursed path. The camp is eerily silent, as though it has been untouched for years, yet there is a palpable sense of unease in the air. They are not alone. The abandoned camp, with its neglected gear and half-finished preparations, seems like a grim warning, a testament to the failure of those who came before. Their bones, buried deep in the desert, are a part of this land now, lost to the sands. The group moves cautiously, their eyes scanning the area, alert for any signs of movement or danger. As they continue, they find a narrow opening in the mountainside, a cave entrance barely visible against the rocky landscape. The cold air that seeps from the cave offers a brief, chilling reprieve from the scorching desert heat. But the relief is short-lived. Inside, the air is thick with a musty scent, the remnants of long-dead bodies lingering in the darkness. The cave walls are jagged, and the passage narrows, forcing them to squeeze through tight spaces. The silence inside is deafening, broken only by the distant echoes of their own footsteps. But as they delve deeper, they begin to hear something else. Whispers, soft and unintelligible, like the voices of those who once wandered here and never returned. The cave opens into a small chamber, and that's when they see it. The bones, piles of them, scattered across the cold stone floor, picked clean by scavengers. The remains of men who once believed they could conquer the desert, just like them. Some bones are still wrapped in tattered clothes, while others are broken, scattered as if they were abandoned in a desperate flight. The sight is enough to make the group pause, their hearts pounding in their chests. The cave feels alive with the presence of the dead, the air thick with the energy of those who had come seeking fortune and met their end in this very place. Each step they take in the cave feels like an intrusion into something far darker than they could have imagined. And yet they can't stop. They are drawn deeper, unable to escape the pull of the cursed place. One of the men, desperate for answers, searches the ground and finds a journal half buried beneath the bones. It's worn and weathered, the pages brittle and yellowed with age, but the writing is still legible. As he flips through the pages, the others gather around, their eyes fixed on the words that tell a story far more horrifying than they could have anticipated. The journal speaks of a supernatural force that had gripped the land, something ancient and malevolent that had consumed the prospectors one by one. The journal describes how the men began to hear voices, just like the whispers they had heard earlier. It details their descent into madness, their distrust growing as the land itself seemed to shift and twist around them. But the most chilling part of the journal is its final entry, one that speaks of the curse that will never release its hold, and how those who seek the treasure will be trapped forever, their souls claimed by the desert. As the man finishes reading the last entry, the air in the cave grows heavier. The echoes of past screams seem to reverberate through the walls, the voices of the lost calling out in desperation. The fear that had only lingered in the back of their minds now becomes undeniable. The journal, once a source of potential hope, has only served to confirm their worst fears. They are not the first to be drawn into this nightmare, nor will they be the last. The curse is real, the desert is alive, and it is watching them. It knows they are here, and it will not let them leave. Fear, once a fleeting sensation, is now a tangible force that fills the cave. The walls seem to close in on them as they realize the terrifying truth. They are part of a long, dark history, doomed to be consumed by the land they sought to conquer. The air grows colder with each step, and the desert, once vast and empty, now feels like an oppressive labyrinth. The landscape has changed. Jagged rocks rise from the earth like twisted ancient fingers, and dead trees stand as gnarled reminders of a land forsaken by life. The wind, cold and biting, howls through the mountain passes, sending chills down their spines. It feels as if the land itself has turned against them. The group notices strange marks on the rocks, deep gouges that could only have been made by something far larger than any man. As they move deeper into the mountains, the feeling of being watched grows stronger, the sense of dread thickening in the air like a storm cloud. They are not alone in these cursed hills. Something is following them. The map, which once seemed like their only hope, now reveals a terrifying truth. The location they have been following points directly to the cursed mine, the very place where the creature resides. It is not just a legend. The beast is real, and it lurks in the heart of the mountains, waiting for those who dare to seek what is buried beneath. As they push forward, the ground beneath their feet trembles, and a low growl reverberates through the air, chilling them to the core. The beast is near. Their steps quicken, but no matter how fast they move, they can feel it, closing in, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The terror is palpable, each of them running on pure instinct, praying to escape the creature's grasp. Suddenly, the silence is broken by a bone-chilling scream. One of the prospectors, a tall man named Henry, is yanked into the darkness by an unseen force. His body is dragged, kicking and thrashing into the shadows of the rocks. The group freezes, paralyzed by fear. In the blink of an eye, Henry is gone, swallowed by the dark, his scream echoing in their ears as the creature's growl rumbles louder. Panic erupts. The men scatter, scrambling for safety, but the creature follows relentlessly, its speed terrifying and inhuman. The ground shakes beneath their feet as it hunts them, its eyes gleaming with predatory hunger. There is no escape. The desert, once a desolate wasteland, is now their prison, and the beast is its relentless warden, closing in on them one by one. The group of 5 survivors stumbles through the rugged terrain, their bodies exhausted and their spirits shattered. The sky above is heavy with dark clouds, casting a grim pall over the desert. The air is thick and oppressive, the wind no longer carrying the warm relief it once did. Every step they take feels like it could be their last, and the once barren land now seems to close in on them, as if the desert itself is trying to swallow them whole. Their movements are slow, labored, each footstep sinking into the hot, unforgiving sand. The distant roar of the beast echoes in their ears, a constant reminder that they are not safe, not even for a moment. But there is a chance, a faint, dwindling hope that pushes them forward. The way out. One of the men, Daniel, is gravely injured. His leg is mangled, a deep wound that won't stop bleeding. Every step he takes is a painful reminder that time is running out. The others do their best to support him, but the weight of the desert is becoming too much. The heat, the thirst, and the constant terror are breaking them down, and Daniel's wound is a ticking clock, counting down to the moment when they will no longer be able to continue. They can't afford to stop, can't afford to slow down. Their eyes scan the horizon, searching for any sign of the way out, but the landscape looks the same, endless, barren, and hostile. The beast is still hunting them, always lurking, always waiting for the moment when they falter. As they reach the base of a rocky outcrop, the clouds above darken further and the wind picks up, carrying with it the stench of something far worse than the desert itself. Their path becomes more treacherous as they climb, the rocks sharp and jagged beneath their feet. The air feels thick, suffocating. Every breath is a struggle, but in the distance, just beyond the darkening landscape, they spot a cave entrance, an escape. It's small and hidden, barely visible from where they stand, but it's their only chance. Daniel's wound is getting worse with each passing minute, his blood staining the ground beneath him. He can barely walk now, and the others know they can't leave him behind. They have no choice but to press on, knowing that time is running out for them all. But just as they think they've found a way out, the ground trembles beneath them. A low growl, deep and guttural, shakes the earth, and a shadow passes overhead. The creature is here again, faster, angrier, and more relentless than ever. It charges from the darkness, a massive, snarling beast, its eyes glowing with fury. The group is caught off guard, and for a moment, panic sets in. They scramble, running for their lives, their breaths ragged and their hearts pounding in their chests. Daniel's injury is slowing him down, and the others are forced to make a choice: leave him behind or risk being caught by the creature. There's no time to think. The creature is too close, and survival becomes the only thing that matters now. In the chaos, they manage to find the cave entrance, just as the creature lunges toward them. The narrow opening is their only hope. They dive into the cave, pulling Daniel behind them, their hands slick with sweat and fear. The creature's roar shakes the walls, but they don't stop. They can't. Inside the cave, they press themselves against the cold rock, breathing heavily as the sounds of the beast's fury fade into the distance. The world outside is quiet, eerily so. For a moment, they think they are safe, but they know the truth. They have only bought themselves a little more time. The desert is unforgiving, and the creature still hunts them, always waiting, always watching. The final escape has come at a cost, and they are not free yet. The fight for survival continues, and only their strength and their trust in one another will carry them through to the end. The survivor, now the last of his group, stumbles toward the entrance of the mine, each step heavier than the last. His face is gaunt, his eyes sunken from days of sleeplessness and terror. The world around him has become a blur, but he knows he is close. The mine is within reach. The map, now nearly disintegrated from the wear of time and hardship, had led him here, to the heart of the Superstition Mountains, where the treasure that had once seemed so promising now feels like a cruel joke. The sky overhead is dark, swirling with storm clouds, casting an ominous shadow over the land. The air is thick with the scent of decay and death, and the desert has turned its back on him. This place, once alive with hopes of riches, now feels like a tomb. The mine site is a wasteland. Ruined structures and broken equipment lie scattered across the ground, a testament to the failed attempts of those who came before. There are no signs of life, no whispers of fortune waiting to be claimed. The rocks surrounding the mine are cracked and weathered, and the air is thick with the weight of despair. What once promised wealth has been reduced to nothing but broken dreams and lost souls. The remnants of old campfires and rusted tools litter the site, like the forgotten remnants of those who, like him, sought the treasure and found only death. The echoes of their failures reverberate through the silent, desolate landscape, telling the story of a place that has consumed everyone who dared to enter. As the prospector steps deeper into the site, he notices something that catches his eye, a weathered stone tablet, half buried in the dirt. He kneels, his hands trembling as he brushes away the sand, revealing an ancient inscription. The words, though faded and worn, are unmistakable, a warning. The map had not led him to gold, but to this cursed place. The treasure was never gold or riches. It was the curse itself, buried deep within the earth. The tablet tells of the ancient force that had long dwelled here, a malevolent presence that had claimed the lives of those who came seeking its secrets. The map had always been a trap, a lure to draw the greedy and the desperate into the grasp of something far darker than they could ever comprehend. He is too late. He was always too late. The prospector clutches the map to his chest, the realization sinking in. The truth of the mine, of the treasure, becomes clear. There was never any wealth to be found. The real treasure was the curse itself, and now he, too, is marked by it. His body feels heavier, his movements more sluggish, as though something is pulling him into the earth. The air around him grows colder, and the storm above intensifies, as though the sky itself is closing in. His mind begins to unravel, the whispers of those who came before him now filling his ears. They had been warned, but they had ignored it, just as he had. And now, there is no escape. The curse has him, just as it had claimed them all. The ruins around him seem to come alive, the shadows twisting and shifting like the forms of the lost souls who had once wandered these same paths. His heart pounds in his chest as the voices grow louder, echoing in his mind. He can hear their pleas, their desperate cries for help, their warning to turn back. But it's too late for him now. The curse has taken hold, and there is no turning back. His steps falter, and as he looks around, he sees the faces of those who perished before him, their eyes empty and their mouths agape in silent screams. They are part of this place now, trapped in its grip, and he, too, will become one of them. As he stumbles toward the mine's entrance, a cold wind picks up, howling through the ruins like the cries of the damned. His vision blurs, and the world around him fades to black. The last thing he sees is the shadow of something moving in the darkness, something that has been waiting for him, just as it waited for all those before him. The prospector vanishes into the depths of the mine, swallowed by the same curse that claimed everyone else who sought its secrets. The storm above intensifies, and the land is silent once more, save for the eerie whispers of the lost souls who are now part of the mountain's eternal hunger. And so the Superstition Mountains stand, silent and unmoving, holding within them the secrets of those who dared to uncover them. The curse remains, a dark force that never releases its grip. The last survivor is gone, consumed by the very thing he sought to conquer. The map, now nothing more than a faded relic, has fulfilled its purpose, drawing the desperate into the embrace of the beast that resides deep within the earth. The desert, once full of promise, is now nothing more than a graveyard of broken dreams. The Superstition Mountains never forgive, they never forget, and they will always hunger for more.